Hello. Test. Okay, great.
Hello.
Test.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Glad I was able to make this technology work.
Yep, glad you joined a little bit earlier. Yeah, it takes a while. I'm just waiting on our Karina, so we'll give them a couple minutes. And I see there's quite a few people already logging in, so that's good news.
Yay. Can they hear us talking?
Yeah, they can.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
Hello?
Hello,
Hello?
Karina. Hi, thank you for.
Hi.
We'll go ahead and get started in a couple minutes. I'm just waiting for Karina Sanchez.
Okay.
And Alberto's also on.
Hi, Alberto.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, this is Karina.
Hi, Karina. Thank you for joining. All right, everyone. It looks like we're all on the line, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining today. And for those attending and watching the webinar today, please make sure that to stay engaged throughout the webinar, feel free to ask questions, and we'll be happy to answer those at the end. My name is Stephanie Jacobo. I am the Partnership Engagement Manager at HACE, the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement. We try to have at least one webinar a month discussing different topics that are relevant to Latinos out there. So the topic for today will be Step Up, Serve on a Nonprofit Board. And we're really lucky to have some really involved people to give us some advice and share some of their experiences throughout their careers in auxiliary boards. So thank you all for participating. To give you a little bit of background about what HACE is for those that are new, It is a national nonprofit organization. Essentially, what our mission is to cultivate a pipeline of Latinos and provide them with different leadership development programs starting from high school all the way to executive level to help them advance in their careers. So it is a really great mission. We have auxiliary boards in 3 different cities right now, New York, Houston, and Chicago, and we're always looking to expand. So if you're in a different city, feel free to reach out. I also suggest to become a member on our website. If you go to aceonline.org, you'll be able to receive updates about all of the programs that we have throughout the year. Additionally, we do have job scrapes, so if there's any jobs that you are interested in apply, we are happy to refer you to some of our partners. We have over 35 corporate partners that we'll be happy to refer you over to. And other programs that are pretty popular throughout the nation is our Mujeres de ACE program, which is offered in 10 different cities. We also have our Leadership Academy program, which is offered in 3 cities, University Leadership, El Futuro, which are both for our high school and our college students. So we have several networking events to create career connections. And then we also have our annual summit here in Chicago in the month of April. So if you're interested in any of those, feel free to go on our website and you can find more information about those programs. But for the purpose of this webinar, we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start with introductions. So these are our speakers today. We have 2 Karinas and Alberto. So Karina, Izaguirre, if you could just please go ahead and get started and introduce yourself. Tell us about your career, the current boards that you serve on, and then something fun or exciting about yourself.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. And it is unusual for us to have 2 Karinas. It doesn't happen often. So it's a treat. And happy to be on the call today and talking about the importance and of serving on a nonprofit auxiliary board. I am the Houston board chair and been with the board going on 2 years, or I guess it just was 2 years this month, and it's been a lot of fun. What I do in my regular role is I'm a global head of talent and learning for Greco. It's a global organization, and so my career is all about professional leadership development. So I was looking for some way to take my passion, what I do every day, and take it to the community and my peer network and give back. And I looked at different organizations over the course of my career. I've supported multiple types of boards and organizations, and it really stood out to me because of the focus it places on professional leadership development all the way from high school through university and your career. And I thought it was a really great way to step in and add support, and we have a really great team. So that's me.
Thank you. Karina Sanchez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karina Sanchez. I am a diversity, equity, inclusion professional. I currently work at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago in their D&I office. Specifically, I oversee our employee resource groups, if that's something you're familiar with. I'm an overachiever, and so currently I'm on 3 boards, but I'll highlight the one, the purpose for this webinar, I'll highlight the ACE Young Professional Board. I joined about, I think it's been a year now officially, and so I'm one of the co-chairs for the Professional Development Committee, and it's been really great. What attracted me to ACE was serving and mentoring young Latinos, not only from high school, but college, but also the young professional level, but even the more senior level. And so for me, being first gen, that kind of really spoke to me, and along my kind of path and journey, I've gotten kind of to the place I am because of those mentorships and those opportunities and programs. So really honored to be on ACE's Young Professional Board. fun fact about myself, I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 3 years. So just thought I'd share that. Thank you.
We'll have to have another webinar on veganism next month.
Yes.
Alberto Morales, last but not least.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alberto Morales, and I am the Associate Program Officer at the McCormick Foundation here in Chicago. And what we do in a nutshell is philanthropy, so grant making. We give around 50 million to 60 million per year across Chicago land in order to reduce poverty, focus on veterans issues, improve early childhood education, and improve our civic infrastructure. I'm specifically housed in the Communities Program where we're focused on poverty alleviation work. And in my role as Associate Program Officer, I handle the education strategy, the K to post-secondary pipeline. And I'm also focused on leading our sports partnerships with our Chicago Bulls, Blackhawks, White Sox, and Cubs. And then also focus on evaluation and data analysis for our portfolio. And through my work with New Leaders Council as co-chair of the executive board, it's dovetailed nicely professionally as well, because I've been focused on making sure that they have a pipeline of philanthropy coming to the organization. So I've been able to leverage my professional network in philanthropy to support New Leaders Council as they scale their finances. And I'm very excited to be part of HACE as well. I believe wholeheartedly in the mission and advancement and acceleration of Latinos in our different careers. And I believe this is a great conversation for us to have because we need diverse voices at the table. So I'm excited for that conversation. And I'll say one last thing about the fun fact is that I love to travel, and I'll be going to India in 10 days. So if anybody has recommendations, shoot them my way.
Love it. And I'll make sure to, at the end of this webinar, towards the end, to add my contact information in case any of you have any questions and you want to direct them directly to our speakers today. So be on the lookout for that. But we'll go ahead and get to the nitty-gritty of the webinar. So one of the most common misconceptions is that auxiliary boards are governing boards. So could you please elaborate on the difference between these boards and also some of the responsibilities that auxiliary boards have?
I guess I can start that. This is Karina Izaguirre. So yes, it's actually really important that we have a governing process and bylaws and so forth that we follow. We do have a voting process to join the board. We have a, just what you would typically see on a board where we have a chair and a vice chair. So we have the executive roles. The secretary and the treasurer are sort of the main executive roles that we need to run the board. And then we have committee chairs for the different programs. But it's run very much like you would see any other board where we call it to order and we have our Roberts rules that we follow. We take minutes, we make decisions, we vote on decisions, in many cases we come to these boards with not a whole lot of experience, and a lot of times people are shy to step up and join an auxiliary board because they haven't served before. But this is a great way to actually get that experience. This is just jump right in, and we've got a very supportive national board in Chicago that provides a lot of guidance, and we're very much aligned. So we definitely function like a governing board locally in the region that we support, but take our guidance from the national board in Chicago.
Thank you. Alberto, would you like to share some of your experiences with some of the councils that you serve on, or the auxiliary boards?
Sure. Just to add on to what Karina mentioned, I think that I'm also part of an executive board and then also part of auxiliary boards. And the biggest difference between both of those is that executive boards have decision-making authority on how the strategy of the organization will change and move forward. The auxiliary board that I'm part of are more so an advisory capacity. So they don't have decision making or won't fundraise to the level that executive boards do, but they also are very engaged in membership engagement, small fundraising initiatives, the visibility of the organization, and making sure that the programming is well executed, I would say, are the major responsibilities of auxiliary boards. And it's a great step leading up to executive boards because you gain the experiences in fundraising and engagement and visibility in order to then step up and serve on an executive board position.
Karina, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I think Karina and Alberto covered most of it. I think if I were to add anything from being on auxiliary boards, I've definitely, adding to what Alberto said, is definitely kind of being an advocate or ambassador for the governing executive board. I think that's kind of one of the big things to being on the auxiliary board. We're supporting that and kind of being that voice and face as well, and just reaching out to different audiences as well.
Yeah. And we want to know more about you and your personal backgrounds and why you serve on the boards that you serve. So could you share with us and align your personal mission with the mission of the boards that you serve, and how serving on an auxiliary board has either helped you in your career or even helped you to develop more skills in your personal and professional lives? Karina Sanchez, would you like to
you're asking me directly. Okay, yep, so I kind of have like a long answer, but I think touching to the first part about kind of why I serve, and so I have several reasons. I think for me, the big one is in undergrad, I was very involved on campus. I was a student leader for our Diversity and Multicultural Affairs office. I served on a board for a Latinx student organization. And so for me, kind of naturally, I wanted to continue kind of volunteering and serving my time. And so kind of found out you can do that through these auxiliary and junior boards. And so, for me, if you're an individual, and this is just my personal experience and opinion, if you have the time, capacity, and are privileged in a sense, it's very important to give back to your communities and other communities. And for me, I'm very passionate about supporting Latinx and brown youth, especially as, we're talking about providing access and resources and mentorship. And so, my background in first gen, and so for me those things are really important. And so as I was kind of looking at what organizations to volunteer, ASE was one that really jumped out to me just because of the mentorship piece, but then very targeted to supporting Latinx individuals. And so for me, that's kind of one of my main motivators and what drives me. Additionally as well, I think some of the other junior boards that I serve on, the mission is kind of very, very tied to that. I'm part of another organization called Prospanica Chicago, who also supports Latinx professionals. And then I'm part of the Illinois Diversity Council, which also kind of caters to a more diverse audience. And so for me, kind of being in the diversity inclusion space and kind of being passionate about supporting those groups, I think was really important for me to kind of share my knowledge and skill set in that capacity. Kind of shifting to more individual benefits on why I serve and how that's benefited me. One, it's definitely helped me expand my network. For the people that know me, they know me that I'm very introverted. And so I don't like being the center of attention. And if I had a choice, sometimes public speaking doesn't come as naturally to me. And so being on these boards really challenged me to kind of put myself out there, meet new people, practice those public speaking skills. And so for me, being on these boards, I've gotten the chance to be on panels, webinars like this one. I've gotten the chance to plan and lead events where, I've spoken in front of 100 people or so. And so these things are really kind of these things make you a little uncomfortable, but being an individual who loves to grow and learn, it definitely has pushed me outside of my comfort zone, which I think is great. If you're looking to challenge yourself in that way, I know it can be a little scary and overwhelming, but it really pays off as those are skills that you can apply not only, in your everyday life, but also at work. And so for me, kind of practicing those public speaking opportunities and leading our boards has definitely, I've seen an improvement in me feeling more comfortable speaking in front of individuals and also just building my confidence. And so that definitely has impacted how I show up and contribute at work. Last Friday, I had to do a 15-minute presentation at work in front of 500 people. And so looking at a year or two ago, I don't know if I necessarily would have been prepared or ready for that, and definitely practicing through these opportunities through the board has definitely helped me kind of feel prepared and confident for that. And then just lastly, I'd like to add for me, the biggest thing is also networking. I've met very amazing people doing amazing work, and so that's been really great. The people, these people that you're meeting at events or that you're serving with, for me, they're not just people you see like once a month. Some of these people have become my role models, my mentors, my friends, and even one individual that on a board that I serve with, they're my new roommate. And so for me, I think it's really important to kind of look at these opportunities as well as kind of building those relationships. And you never know how these people are going to like impact or touch your life, and either now or later on in life. And so I know that was a lot, but I just wanted to share some of those things and what they mean to me.
Yeah, it was all really great, and it's definitely a great opportunity to improve your leadership skills and help you in your career and your personal life. And for you, Alberto, can you maybe share with us, in your experience, how you've been able to leverage your company, or in your case, the foundation that you work for, to create partnerships and donations?
Sure, absolutely. So I have the great privilege of working for a foundation that has great resources readily available to employ to different nonprofits. And I don't take this lightly, and I try to leverage it as much as I can. And I've done that successfully with the different auxiliary boards that I've served on. And one of those opportunities that our foundation provides to employees is a matching program. So if an employee gives, let's say, $50, the foundation will match it 2 to 1. So in total, the nonprofit organization will get $150 instead of just the $50. So that's just one benefit my foundation provides. We also provide sponsorships. So there are annual galas, fundraisers that these auxiliary boards will put on, and then the foundation will get the request and then either support or not. And the foundation that I work for loves to support its employees and the different community service organizations that they're involved with. So it's been quite successful. But I would also encourage you guys who are on boards or will be thinking of joining boards to develop relationships with different foundations that do have similar sponsorship opportunities, matching programs to leverage that's not really known about. I only recently found out about it entering philanthropy, but I didn't realize that that resource was available. So that's just one of many examples that exist within my company. And I know that corporations have similar programs, so it just depends. And as you expand your network, talk to your friends and find out what opportunities are available for them to get involved with your nonprofits and your auxiliary boards.
Yeah, definitely want to take advantage of all of those resources that you have within your companies, and make sure that you're asking questions to your ERG, BRG groups for those that are in corporations, or your champions or sponsors, mentors within the companies or organizations that you work at. So Karina, Izaguirre, I know right now there's HACE is getting ready for the auxiliary board to receive applications for new board members. So can you share with us some of the main qualifications for serving on an auxiliary board, not only on your experience with ASE, but also other boards? How many years of experience do you need? How competitive is it to join? And anything else you think it's important to add?
Sure. I think auxiliary boards are a good place to start, right, before you get to kind of an executive governing board. And I would say from a qualifications perspective, I think there's a big need to have an alignment with your personal mission, like you were talking about earlier. If that's not in alignment, it's going to be difficult to then, bring the motivation that's needed, to deliver towards the mission of ASE or any board that you're serving. So it's really digging deep and figuring out where do you want to spend your time, because as you know, we can't be everywhere. So it's really narrowing down where you want to, what's your purpose, where do you want to give back. For me, very personally, it was definitely giving back to the Latino community because I had been serving other or organizations that were maybe focused on women leadership, but then even in those organizations, as I looked around, it still wasn't diverse enough. And so I felt like I needed to shift my focus, and if I was going to put energy into something, that I needed to focus it on the Latino community, and especially in the current climate, I felt like that was for me a personal mission. So I think that's important, is to align it, and then so that brings a passion, that brings the drive, organization skills, time management. Most people will have a full-time job, and then this is what we do, after our 9 to 5. But sometimes it is, calls during our workday, or board meetings, and it's a lot of coordination of events. So time management is absolutely critical. Conflict management is really important. A lot of times you're working with people, you're just meeting for the first time. It's we're building relationships, and there's going to be conflict, just like with in any work environment. We're driving towards a mission, and we challenge each other, right? So we have to be able to have a good communication around that, verbal skills, written skills. So if you have if you feel like you can manage conflict well, you communicate well with others, you build good relationships, this is a good place to bring those skills and enhance them even further. I think on a more kind of executive boards, I think more kind of the finance and budgeting piece are critical, because you're doing a lot, as Alberto mentioned earlier, with the fundraising. It's a lot more higher volumes with that, and when you're raising higher volumes of funds, then you're talking to higher levels of executives in organizations to make a business case for why they should invest in your mission, and that takes practice. So it's auxiliary boards are a good place to practice some of that and learn from sort of that executive board that you are getting guidance from. But over time, that is something that you can aspire to grow into, right? If that's your desire and aspiration.
And for you too, is there any other anything else that you would like to add about other auxiliary boards that you serve on that maybe have different requirements, or is it pretty much the same across the board?
So we'll be for. Oh, I'm sorry that you were asking.
Oh no, go ahead.
Follow up.
Go ahead, Karina Sanchez.
Okay. No, I think, my thoughts in kind of what I had to say was very similar to what Karina I just mentioned. I think the skill set is very important, but I think passion and commitment is also equally important. I think some people, might be attracted to joining boards because of the name or reputation. And, I think it's I don't know if that's the best route, in my opinion. I think it's really important to kind of align yourself with the mission and, do something that you're passionate about. There's so many boards, for almost everything you can imagine. And so I think it's really important to set yourself up for success and do participate, volunteer your time for a board that's doing something you're passionate about, whether that's environment, helping homeless people, whatever that may be, because, you're really going to be engaged and committed if you're doing something that you love. And so that's something, that I just think is important to keep in mind. And then the other thing too, kind of talking about your qualifications and experiences, those things are great too. I think if you're able to kind of network or meet with some of the people that are currently on the board, you'll get a better idea of, the possible opening positions or kind of the gaps or kind of skill set that they're looking for. And if that's, I think it's really important to leverage, everyone has unique skills and strengths, and so if you notice that maybe they need someone to do marketing or social media, and that's something you're strong in, I think definitely like reaching out and showcasing that, whatever that unique skill may be, I think is really important too, as a way to like stand out as well.
Thank you. And for you, Alberto, as far as the New Leaders Council, how competitive is it? Are there any tips that you would like to share with our audience today? How many years of experience are you guys looking for?
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit that's national, and we have different chapters across different cities. So we definitely, if you're a major city, we will most likely be present. So I highly encourage you to look us up. Our mission is focused on training the next generation of progressive leadership across the country, and specifically millennials. So that's a mission that I care about deeply, in particular for our generation. I believe that we need to activate our civic participation in order to move our society into a more equitable frame. And that's the mission of New Leaders Council. So in order to be on the board, you have to have participated as a fellow. It's a fellowship program. So you can only serve on the board in that capacity. And to Karina's point, some of the different auxiliary boards will have different requirements. So it's just a matter of figuring out what those requirements are, what the qualifications are. But I'll say that I am involved with a few different other ones, and it just ranges on level of experience, on how competitive it is. And I would just encourage you to your point, Stephanie, find organizations where you value align, because you will be most passionate and be able to serve to those organizations when you're most aligned to your mission and the mission of the organization. So it really just depends on the organization and their governance structure and bylaws as to how competitive and formalized it is to get in.
Thank you. Well, we definitely want to make this webinar more of a call to action and help those who are interested in joining boards share with the process, connect them with some resources. So if you all could please share some of the different boards that you would suggest for them to look into. Where can they find more information about joining a board, and anything else that you feel is important for them to keep in mind when they're looking for boards to apply to?
Yeah, I can start. Oh, do you want to go, Karina?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I can start. So shameless plug. So I'm on the HACE Young Professional Board here in Chicago, and so if you're local to Chicago area, we're actually currently recruiting folks for a new board, and so the application should be going live within the week, and I know HACE is going to be sharing that via our newsletter and social media platforms, as well as my contact information if you're interested in what the application. But if you're an individual that's, I think we're looking for age 24 to like 40, who wants to get involved and align yourself with HACE's mission, then I think you'd be a great candidate to apply for a young professional board. In addition to that, I think as we're talking about how do you go about finding those opportunities, I think part of it is kind of being proactive and doing your research, speaking to what your passions are. That's a great way to start. I think the other thing too, it never hurts. Some of the boards that I sit on, how I became part of them is I reached out to one of the current board members and just asked them for coffee and just got to know them, got to know the work that they do for that organization. And that eventually led to me volunteering for their events here and there, and definitely kind of showcased my skills and my passion for the work that they were doing. And that kind of led to them being, we have an opening, would you like to apply, or, would you like to be appointed? And so sometimes it can start off with a simple coffee conversation or even volunteering your time. And I think it's nice sometimes too when you start off just volunteering, because then you get to gauge how that organization functions if without kind of being committed by being on the board. And so that might be also an option too, if you want to get a feel for the work they're doing and the time commitment.
Thanks. Karina Sanchez?
So I'll do the same shameless plug for the Houston HACE board. So as you mentioned earlier, we're getting ready to solicit applications for some of the roles. We'll post those online. So if you're in the Houston area, please keep an eye out for that. How did I get plugged into boards? I think through, I would say, ERGs, the employer resource networks in the companies I've worked at. Typically, we would engage organizations like HACE. Another one that I'm a big supporter of is Lean In Energy, or just the Lean In organization as a whole, but Lean In Energy specifically has been a big part of my kind of journey in this space. And again, it focuses on women in energy. So again, if that's your passion, that's an option. Or of course, there's many different options out there. Just aligning with where you want to put your efforts. But would love to have interest in the Houston HACE board. We're definitely expanding and in the sense of wanting to have greater reach and impact in the Houston area. And we're working on our next event, by the way, in July 31st at Enbridge. So that will be online as well, posted online, I mean. And what the board does with some things like that, when it's a local event, if it's not a program per se like Mujeres HACE, the local boards will organize some of its fundraising, right? Some of it's just continuing to bring members opportunities to develop, and we really put a thought into what impact we want to make with it, right? And it's a lot of fun really thinking about what does the community really need, what is relevant, what is something helpful, what have we heard back from surveys and from members that have come to different events, what do they want, and so we focus on our own kind of circle of influence that we have in the community that we serve. But when you multiply that by a growing number of boards across the country, then together collectively we're making a pretty massive impact.
Yeah, definitely. And then Alberto, can you please, if there's any resources that you know of, can you please share them with the participants? Also, another thing that I think is important to discuss is there a season when boards are recruiting, or does it vary by each board? And then last but not least, at the beginning of the webinar, you mentioned the importance of creating a pipeline. So if you could please elaborate a little bit more on that too.
Sure, absolutely. So to answer your first question about timeline and recruitment deadlines and cyclical, I think it really depends on the nonprofit. Some of them will start in the beginning of the year, some of them will go in the summer, and some of them will recruit toward the end around December. So it really just depends on the nonprofit. There's not a standardized timeline across the field of nonprofits. So it'll really take your initiative to scout the nonprofit that you want to join and then follow up with them many times because they're super busy. They're doing so many million other things. So it requires you to be an advocate for yourself if you really are interested in joining a board. And then two, finding out about, and three, finding out about their timelines and the recruitment requirements. So the way that I approach the different boards that I'm on, and I'll give a shout out to the different ones. We're for sure recruiting now for New Leaders Council for the next cohort. It's a leadership program, so I'd highly encourage everybody to look us up. The applications are now open. That's a great pipeline for the board. But I'm also I'm also part of the board of the National Museum of Mexican Art Auxiliary Board, and our recruitment will be coming up in the next few months. So keep an eye out for that on our website. And I'm also involved with Cristo Rey Jesuit High School's auxiliary board, and that one's ad hoc. So as people show interest, we'll roll them on. So that gives you a really good perspective at how different each of those governance structures and recruitment timelines are, and they're all very different. And the reason why I decided to join all those three is because, as we all know through our own professional experience, we can't activate all of our passions in our day-to-day job fully. It's impossible because we're passionate about so many different issues. I'm passionate about the arts, I'm passionate about education, I'm passionate about civic engagement. So it's impossible to meld those all together in a 40 work week job, right? And if you can do it, I'm very impressed by that. But I can't. So the auxiliary boards have allowed me to express my mission in the arts and education and civic engagement, and provided that holistic professional experience that I also yearn for, and that provides my motivation to keep going. So again, find what you're passionate about, look up the nonprofit. It'll most likely be on the website, so you can go and see if they have an auxiliary board on the website. And if they don't, I'd highly encourage you to reach out to someone on staff. There will be a contact information email. Just reach out. It doesn't hurt to check if they don't have it listed, and follow up, and just follow up. And it'll take a lot of independent research on your behalf to figure out what you care about, and then to proactively seek out nonprofits that align to that mission will be the fun part. So it just really depends on the issue that you care about and what you want to get involved with.
Definitely. This is all very valuable information. And we have quite a few questions that our participants are asking. So we'll go ahead and get started with those. The first one will go to Karina Sanchez, since you work for the Federal Reserve Bank, and it is a federal bank. So there's a question from one of our attendees that says, I work for the federal government and I'm not allowed to solicit donations for organizations. Is fundraising a requirement to participate in an auxiliary board?
Yeah, so no, that's a great question. And so I work for the Federal Reserve Bank, so we're like quasi-government, but those rules also apply to us where we can't, at work especially, we kind of have to balance, we can't be asking for donations for specific organizations. And so for me, the boards that I participate on, I think one of the three, the ASEAN professional, there's kind of a give gap where we are required to, fundraise. It's $500. And so for me, kind of how I do that is through, and you have to talk to the folks who are on the board. I know for me, I was a little hesitant at first to joining because, for me, starting off, just a recent grad, $500, I was like a little nervous. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, fundraise that much. When I reached out before applying to the board, they kind of explained what that kind of includes. And so that can include, you doing like individual fundraisers on like Facebook, but also most of the things can be, you know, maybe your office can donate space that counts as well, or kind of getting creative as well. And, you know, recruiting folks to attend some of our bigger events. You know, if you got 20 people to show up, most likely they're paying for tickets. And so that counts as well as a donation. And so I think it's really important to kind of, you know, don't let that be kind of, you know, a deterrior from like applying and joining a board. I think it's really important to kind of reach out and ask those questions, because you're not, you know, you're not going to be the first one who might have that restriction, depending on where you work, or might have, you know, some hesitancy in kind of being able to actually raise that much money. You know, the board is there to help, and other people have kind of been in those situations, and they can definitely advise you on how to go about doing that.
Yeah, it's a great question and great answer. Thank you, Karina. This one's for Karina Izaguirre. Would you be willing to share your experience with the interview process to become a board member?
Sure. So what we typically do is, once we send out kind of an open invite to apply, we receive the applications, and we'll typically narrow that down and schedule interviews. Interviews can be face-to-face, or they can be phone interviews. A lot of times they're phone, because it's hard to get, you know, stop everything and get face-to-face, but that can be done as well. But we try to accommodate with all our work-life priorities that we have. So that's part of the process, is to stay very flexible. So we go through the interview process, and then we put it to a vote, basically, and that's how you know, once the voting is done, it's announced, and then we start the cycle. So the board, each board position, for example, has a 2-year term. We alternate which positions are open for election, if you will, so that we're not obviously replacing each position all at the same time. And so that's part of the process, is really making sure that you can commit to that 2-year term. It's very disruptive to have, you know, kind of halfway through the cycle or halfway through the term, people opting out. And sometimes that's going to happen, right? Sometimes you can't control those things, but that's something I think we really, really drive home. This is a 2-year commitment, and it's really important that we can commit to that.
Thank you. And Alberto, how do you balance your schedule with your full-time job and volunteering opportunities?
That is an excellent question that I am still learning, and I would actually advise you guys. I went from joining 0 boards or being on 0 boards to scaling up intensely to 3 boards, all within 1 year. And I would advise against that. Don't do what I did, learn from my experience, because it's been actually super stressful. So I would highly encourage you guys to start with 1 if you're not part of any, and then slowly ramp up, get that experience, and then cultivate your skills. And then if you have the capacity to add on more to your workload outside of work, for sure do it. But I think for me, it's for sure been a learning lesson to learn how to say no. And then moving forward, I've already rolled off 1 board. So I'm also learning from my experiences that I can't do it all. So it's learning how to be intentional with what you want to prioritize for the year, because most board commitments are at least 1 year, if not 2. So you really want to map out what your year looks like and be intentional with your time, and make sure that you also have a little bit of flexibility with it, because it is a lot of time commitment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, I second Alberto. I found myself in a very similar situation where I went from 0 to being part of 3, and so definitely on the same boat as Alberto and recommend what he had shared.
Yeah, and I'm sure once you start being more involved and people start noticing you and the work that you're putting into your career and volunteering and serving the community, more and more opportunities will rise up. So eventually you have to kind of align your goals and see what is most beneficial for you, and then also start introducing those that are coming behind you to these opportunities if you're not able to take them on. Another question that was asked earlier when we were discussing the difference between an auxiliary board and a governing board is what types of decisions or topics are discussed during the meetings. So is there any of you want to answer that question? Karina Izaguirre?
Okay, you have to repeat the question.
Oh, okay. So, so this question came up earlier when we were discussing the difference between the governing boards and the auxiliary boards. And the question is, what type of decisions or topics are discussed during the meetings? So I'm sure it depends on the board in particular.
Very good question. Yeah, no, very good question, and we experience that a lot in the auxiliary board. We're not in a position to, let's say, change the mission of the organization, right? We are there to execute the mission of the organization. So, the mission's been established. We have programs that have been established. We're there to execute them and make sure that they're delivered well, and we support them locally, that we're championing it locally, and that we are, and then we also are, accountable for our own programming that supplements those national kind of programs, right? So the decisions we're making are in line with the delivery of the kind of the national vision and programming, and then aligning kind of our local efforts with within that calendar or that schedule that we are not competing, right, that we're supplementing and supporting. Whereas at the governing level, the executive governing body is there to, set the direction of the organization, nationally, if not globally in some organizations, if it's a global organization in some cases, right, they're setting that broader strategy. They are making financial decisions at a much higher level. So hopefully that gives a little bit of context around the types of decisions we're making at the auxiliary level versus the executive level.
Awesome, thank you. And then another question, this was for you, Karina Sanchez. Earlier we discussed ERG, BRG groups, and there's a question around that. So how does that function in difference to the auxiliary board? So I think if we can explain what an ERG, BRG group is, and how can people get involved and use that as a resource?
So for employee resource groups, those tend to be more in like corporate settings, and so they're employee-led groups, usually on volunteer base and around different categories. Historically, they've been around race. So here where I work, we have 10, and so we have one around Asian identity, Black, Latinx. It's also around gender, so we have a woman ERG, sexual orientation. So they tend to focus around the diverse identities and categories for people at organizations, as well as more recently, around maybe specific interests around professional development or things like that. And so essentially they're groups that kind of come together to build and support community here at the bank. And for us, how they're structured at our company is to drive and support our diversity inclusion initiatives that focus around the culture piece. So ensuring that, folks have a voice at the company, they feel included, they can be their authentic selves at work. The other pieces around talent. So supporting our initiatives around ensuring that we're attracting diverse employees, that we're retaining them and developing them. And then lastly, we have a community focus for we're mission-oriented organization, so we're really committed to supporting the communities we serve, whether that's mentorship opportunities or financial literacy, since we are a financial institution. And so for me, since I oversee our program, I'm not part of the ESNGs. And so for me, that's part of the reasons that I joined a board, because a lot of that work that they're doing is something that I naturally would have gravitated to at the workplace. And so if you have employee resource groups at your company, and you want to get that leadership experience and maybe aren't ready to join a junior board, I think leveraging employee resource groups and volunteering on their board at work is a great experience, because you're doing a lot of similar things. You have board meetings, you're putting events together, things like that. And so, and a lot of times too, even if you just want to volunteer or be a member, they'll connect you to different resources and opportunities. And so I think that's a great question. Definitely a great resource to leverage if you have those in your companies.
Yeah, and for this person specifically that's asking about the ERG, BRG groups, and if there's not one in your company already, we're going to have a webinar next month discussing best practices. So definitely make sure to go on our website to get more information on that for next month. But this is the last question that we're gonna have for this webinar. And we want to know if there's ever been a time that you have regretted joining a board. So if you can share any of your experiences. I know, Alberto, you touched about the time commitment and being a little bit stretched out, but has there ever been a case where you regretted being part of a board?
Yeah, I can start. I'll say that each governance structure is a little bit different. Some of them are more formalized and meet more regularly, maybe monthly. Some of them are more loose and relaxed and not as structured and might only meet once a quarter or maybe twice a year. And then the level of responsibility between the engagement will also vary. So your commitment and what's asked of you will vary. Some of them will require a high level of engagement on your behalf and committing to a lot of volunteer events. Some of them will only have one big annual event. So it really ranges. So it'll be through your experience of joining one that you'll find out if it's a good fit. And I would encourage you, before you join a board, to ask those questions of the level of engagement and time commitment and frequency of meetings, so you also know if it fits with your schedule. Because you might want something more structured and you're ready to commit to monthly meetings because you're ready to roll up your sleeves and get to work. But if you're not, you want to know about that structure so you don't sign up for something that you're not prepared for. So that's what I would say. It's really do your due diligence before you even apply to make sure that the commitment and the level of engagement that they're requiring of you matches up to your time availability.
Awesome. Karina, Sanchez, or Izaguirre, anything else you would like to add before we wrap up the webinar?
I guess I'll go. This is Karina Izaguirre. I don't think I have any regrets. I think just advice maybe for someone thinking about, will I regret this if I jump in? I think it's part of what Alberto said. Just be cautious of your time. I think also knowing the organization helps, right? I think in some cases I have jumped into supporting an organization that I didn't know a lot about, and then realizing it was more heavier lifting than I had anticipated. So I think when you go through the interview process, I think it's important to ask, as you would with any organization, with your regular job. You want to know what's expected of me. So it's definitely okay to ask those questions. What's expected of me? What type of time commitment? How many hours per week or month do you anticipate? All those are really great questions. Have those ready. But definitely don't look at it as any regrets, right? Everything's always a growing experience, growing opportunity, a learning opportunity. We all grow from challenges as well. So I would say keep that open mindset as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing such valuable information and resources with our participants. I hope that you were all able to learn a little bit more, not only about our speakers, but also the process. And you're all encouraged to go and do your research, align your mission and your vision with the vision of those organizations that you're interested in, and then start submitting those applications and not be afraid of being rejected. It's always good to apply, and there's always something to learn. So definitely encourage you all to take advantage of those resources. I added my email to the chat box if any of you are interested in learning more about the organization, or want me to share the application that we have for our auxiliary boards, or would like me to connect with any of our speakers. So definitely feel free to reach out. And also go visit HACE's social media handles and our website, haceonline.org, for more information about future events and anything else that's going on with the organization. So there's always things that are coming up, either within HACE or organizations that we partner with. So feel free to go and follow us. Anything else you guys want to add, Alberto, Karina?
No, just thank you. Thank you again, Stephanie and Maria, for having us. And thank you everyone who kind of tuned in and listened to us. And definitely don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thank you. And I would also just finally plug in that we need diverse voices at the table. So your perspective is so valuable. So please join an auxiliary board.
Same. Thank you for having us. We look forward to future engagement with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all, and have a good rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye.